The massive chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with the usual noise of hundreds of alien voices. Representatives from 47 different worlds sat in their designated sections, each group looking as different from the others as night from day. The Zilithians towered over everyone else with their blue skin and 4 arms. The small gray Corvins scurried between seats carrying data pads. The floating Andromedans drifted near the ceiling, their translucent bodies glowing softly. In the human section, Ambassador Jake Morrison straightened his tie and looked at his watch. Earth Standard Time showed 1430 hours, right on schedule. He glanced at Admiral Lisa Grant, who sat to his right in her crisp Navy uniform, and then at Chief Diplomat Carl Webb on his left, who was quietly reviewing his notes one last time. Prime Minister Vextar of the Zilithian Empire was speaking loudly from the central podium, his voice booming through the translation devices that every delegate wore. The mining rights to the Kepler 442 system should obviously go to the most experienced civilization. We Zilithians have been extracting resources from asteroid fields for over 3,000 years. Several other delegates shouted their disagreements. The Corvin trade leader. Chinthara clicked her mandibles rapidly, which her translator converted to angry words. Experience means nothing without efficiency. Our mining operations produce twice the output of Zilithian methods. Jake Morrison stood up slowly. The movement caught the attention of nearby delegates, and gradually the noise in the chamber began to die down. The human section was not large, only 12 people total, but something about their sudden stillness made others take notice. The chair recognizes Ambassador Morrison of Earth, announced the Council's automated system. Jake walked to the central speaking platform with measured steps. He carried a single sheet of paper in his hand, nothing more. When he reached the podium, he looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring at him. Some looked curious, others annoyed at the interruption of their important debate about mining rights. Honorable delegates, Jake began, his voice calm and clear. I stand before you today to deliver a message from the people of Earth and all human colonies throughout the galaxy. He held up the single sheet of paper. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We resign our membership, renounce all treaties, and recall all human personnel from Council projects and facilities. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates jumped to their feet, shouting questions and protests. Prime Minister Vextar's booming voice rose above the others. This is ridiculous. Humans cannot simply leave. There are procedures, there are contracts, there are obligations. Jake waited for the noise to die down before continuing. We have fulfilled all legal requirements. For withdrawal as outlined in Article 847 of the Council Charter, all human debts to the Council have been paid. All borrowed equipment has been returned. All ongoing projects have been transferred to other member species or terminated with appropriate compensation. Trade leader Chinthara's translator screeched, with electronic feedback as she spoke rapidly. What about the trade agreements, the research partnerships, the military cooperation treaties? You cannot simply abandon these arrangements. All agreements will be honored until their natural expiration dates, Jake replied calmly. No new agreements will be signed. No extensions will be granted. Humanity chooses to pursue its own path forward. An Andromedan delegate floated down from the ceiling, its body pulsing with agitated colors. This is most irregular. What has prompted this sudden decision? Has the Council somehow offended humanity? Jake folded the paper and put it in his jacket pocket. Humanity bears no ill will toward any member of this Council. We simply believe our time would be better spent on other pursuits. This decision is final and non-negotiable. He turned and walked back to the human section without another word. Admiral Grant and Chief Diplomat Webb stood as he approached, along with all the other human delegates. Together, they filed out of the chamber in perfect silence while hundreds of alien voices rose behind them in confusion and anger. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in her laboratory aboard Nexus Prime, the joint research station that orbited the gas giant Proxima 7. She methodically packed her personal belongings into a small travel case while her alien colleagues watched in stunned silence. Elena, please, said Dr. Zixander, a tall Zilithian scientist whose blue skin had turned pale with worry. You must explain what is happening. The research we are conducting here could revolutionize energy production across the galaxy. We are so close to a breakthrough. Elena sealed the last of her equipment in foam padding and closed the case. I am sorry, Zixander. Truly I am. But I have my orders. All human personnel are to return to Earth immediately. But the quantum resonance calculations, protested Dr. Mintar, a small Corvin whose compound eyes were darting nervously. Without your intuitive mathematics, we cannot proceed. Our computers cannot replicate your methods. Then you will have to find another way, Elena said gently. She walked to the main research computer and began typing rapidly. I am initiating Protocol 7. What is Protocol 7? Asked Zixander. Complete data purge of all human-contributed research, Elena replied without looking up from the keyboard. All theoretical models, all experimental data, all preliminary findings that originated from human scientists will be deleted from the station's database. The alien scientists began protesting loudly, but Elena continued typing. Do not worry. All research that was jointly conducted or that belonged primarily to other species will remain intact. Only purely human work is being removed. Dr. Mintar's antennae twitched frantically. Elena, you do not understand. Most of our recent breakthroughs began with human insights. Without those starting points, we will lose years of progress. Elena finished her typing and stepped back from the computer. The screen flashed green, indicating the purge was complete. I am sorry, she said again. But human knowledge stays with humans. We wish you well in your future research. She picked up her travel case and walked toward the airlock where a human shuttle was waiting. Her alien colleagues followed her, still pleading and asking questions, but she did not answer them. As the airlock sealed behind her, she could hear their muffled voices through the thick metal door. Captain Dan Foster stood on the bridge of the medical vessel Mercy, watching the last human transport ships disappear into hyperspace. His was now the only human ship remaining in Council space, and only because they were in the middle of treating refugees from a recent natural disaster on Corvin Prime. His communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Chen, looked up from her station with a puzzled expression. Captain, I am receiving dozens of priority messages from various council governments. They all want to speak with you urgently. What do they want? Dan asked. They are asking about Earth's plans, about the withdrawal, about when humans might return to council space. Some are offering very generous trade deals if we reconsider. Dan walked to the main view screen, which showed the refugee camp on the planet's surface below. Thousands of displaced Corvins were living in temporary shelters while his medical team worked around the clock to treat the injured and sick. Tell them all the same thing, he said quietly. Earth has chosen to focus on internal development. We will honor our humanitarian commitments, but beyond that, humanity has nothing more to say to the Council. Sir, some of these messages are from very high-ranking officials. The Zilithian Emperor himself has requested a personal meeting with you. Dan shook his head. The answer is the same for everyone, Lieutenant. We are here to help people who are suffering, nothing more. As the days passed, more and more alien ships arrived in the system, not to help with the refugee crisis, but to try to convince Captain Foster to arrange meetings with Earth's government. He turned them all away politely but firmly. When the last refugee was treated and relocated, the Mercy jumped to hyperspace, leaving Council space forever. Behind them, the alien governments were just beginning to realize that humanity had not left in anger or frustration. They had left with the quiet confidence of people who had made a decision and would not be swayed from their chosen path. That realization worried the Council delegates more than any angry threats could have. 6 months had passed since the humans left without a word. Trade leader Chinthara stood in her office overlooking the industrial district of Corvin Prime, watching smoke rise from 3 different factory complexes. The automated systems that had run perfectly for decades were breaking down one by one, and her engineers could not figure out why. Ma'am, we have another problem, said her assistant, Engineer Keltar, as he scurried into the office. His compound eyes were darting nervously, a sure sign of stress among his people. The textile plant in Sector 7 has shut down completely. The machines are producing fabric that falls apart when touched. Chinthara clicked her mandibles in frustration. What do the diagnostic computers say? That is the problem, ma'am. The computers say everything is working perfectly. All systems show green. All parameters are within normal ranges. But the products are worthless. Have you tried contacting the human engineers who designed the system? Keltar's antennae dropped low. We have tried, ma'am. But all human communication channels have been silent since they left. Their companies will not answer our calls. Their technical support systems have been shut down. Chinthara turned back to the window. In the distance, she could see another column of smoke rising from the chemical processing plant. How many facilities are affected now? 47 out of 112 major production centers, Keltar replied quietly. The pattern is always the same. Systems that were modified or upgraded by human engineers are failing in ways our computers cannot understand or fix. And the facilities that were never touched by humans? Those are still working fine, ma'am, but they are also much less efficient and produce lower quality goods. Chinthara felt a cold feeling in her stomach. The Corvin economy depended heavily on manufacturing and trade. If their production capabilities continued to decline, their entire civilization would suffer. Send messages to every human colony we can locate. Offer them triple pay to return and fix our systems. We already tried that, ma'am. The messages are returned undelivered. It appears that all human settlements outside their home system have been abandoned. Meanwhile, in a sterile medical bay on the space station Hope's End, Captain Dan Foster sat across from a desperate alien delegation. The station served as a neutral meeting point between different species, and word had spread that he was the last human still willing to talk to council members. Admiral Kethmore, of the Zilithian Navy, leaned forward in his chair, his forearms gesturing emphatically. Captain Foster, you must understand our situation. We are facing threats we have never encountered before. Ships from unknown space are attacking our outer colonies. Dan sipped his coffee calmly. I am sorry to hear that, Admiral. But I am a medical officer, not a military strategist. But you are human, insisted Dr. Nixandra, the Andromedan scientist whose body glowed with urgent orange colors. Your people have a unique way of approaching tactical problems. We need that perspective. The humans I serve with are focused on treating sick and injured people from all species, Dan replied. We have no interest in military matters. Admiral, Kethmore pulled up a holographic display showing recent battle footage. Look at this, Captain. These unknown attackers use tactics that make no sense. They attack strong positions while ignoring weak ones. They retreat when they are winning and advance when they should fall back. Our computers cannot predict their behavior. Dan watched the footage silently. The attacking ships did indeed move, in patterns that seemed random and chaotic. But to his trained eye, there was something familiar about those movements. They reminded him of exercises he had seen human pilots perform during training, tactics that relied on intuition and adaptability, rather than rigid programming. Have you tried responding with flexible tactics instead of programmed responses? He asked. What do you mean? Admiral Kethmore looked confused. Instead of following standard battle procedures, have your commanders make decisions based on what feels right in the moment? Dr. Nixandra's colors shifted to puzzled blue. That makes no logical sense. How can feelings be more accurate than calculated strategies? Dan shrugged. I would not know. I am just a doctor. He stood up from his chair. I am afraid I cannot help you with military problems. If you have any wounded who need medical treatment, I will be happy to assist with that. The alien delegates looked at each other with obvious frustration as Dan left the room. They had hoped that at least one human might be willing to share the secrets of human tactical thinking, but even their most desperate pleas had been politely refused. On the research station, Nexus Prime, Dr. Zick Sanders stared at the quantum resonance, calculations that had stumped his team for months. The equations looked simple enough, but when they tried to apply them, the results made no sense. The energy readings would spike and drop in patterns that their computers labeled as impossible. Dr. Mintar, Have you made any progress with the dimensional mathematics? He called across the laboratory. The small Corvin scientist looked up from his workstation with tired, compound eyes. None at all. I have run every theoretical model in our database. I have consulted with the finest mathematicians on 12 different worlds. Nobody can explain how Dr. Rodriguez made these calculations work. Zixander walked over to Elena's old desk, which they had left exactly as she had used it. Coffee stains marked the surface where she had set her cup while working. Scribbled notes covered several sheets of paper, showing mathematical shortcuts that seemed to violate basic principles, but somehow produced correct answers. "Look at this," he said, pointing to one of Elena's notes. She jumped from equation A directly to solution Z, skipping 15 intermediate steps. When we try to follow her logic, we get meaningless results. But when we test her final answer, it works perfectly. Dr. Mintar clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Perhaps humans process mathematical concepts differently than we do. Their brains might see patterns that our logical minds cannot detect. But that should be impossible, Zixander protested. Mathematics is universal. 2 + 2 = 4 regardless of what species does the calculation. Maybe basic arithmetic is universal, Mintar replied. But higher mathematics might require types of thinking that we do not possess. They both stared at Elena's notes in silence. The human scientist had been working on a project that could have provided unlimited clean energy for the entire galaxy. Now, without her intuitive approach to problem solving, the research had come to a complete halt. Back on Corvin Prime, the situation continued to deteriorate. Trade leader Chinthara received another report of system failures, this time affecting the food processing plants that fed millions of her people. "Ma'am, we think we understand part of the problem," said engineer Keltar as he delivered the latest bad news. The human engineers did not just install new equipment. They modified our existing systems in ways that we never documented. What kind of modifications? Small changes that seemed unimportant at the time. They adjusted timing sequences, modified sensor calibrations, altered chemical mixture ratios. Each change was tiny, but together they created a completely integrated system. Kinthara felt the cold feeling in her stomach getting worse. And now those systems are failing because we do not understand how all the pieces work together. Exactly, ma'am. The humans saw connections that we missed. They understood how changing one small thing would affect everything else in the production line. Can we reverse their modifications? Keltar's antennae drooped. We have tried, ma'am. But when we change the systems back to their original settings, production drops by 60% and quality becomes unacceptable for export. Chinthara walked to her window again. More smoke was rising from the industrial district. Her people were facing economic collapse, and she was beginning to understand why. The humans had not just provided services to the Corvin economy. They had become an essential part of how everything worked. Without human creativity, innovation, and problem-solving abilities, the carefully balanced systems that supported galactic civilization were starting to break down. The other species had been so focused on what they saw as human weaknesses that they had never noticed their strengths. Now, it might be too late to learn from their mistake. 2 years had passed since the humans left, and the galaxy was falling apart. Prime Minister Vextar of the Zilithian Empire stood in his war room, staring at the tactical display that showed red warning lights across half his territory. Enemy ships had taken another 3-star systems while his fleets retreated in confusion. "Admiral Kethmore, report," he commanded, his 4 arms crossed in frustration. The admiral's blue skin had turned pale with exhaustion. "Sir, we have lost the Rigel system completely. The enemy used the same unpredictable tactics we have seen before. Our battle computers cannot calculate their next moves." "How is that possible? We have the most advanced military technology in the galaxy." Admiral Kethmore hesitated before answering. "Sir, our technology is designed to fight enemies who follow logical patterns. These new attackers, the ones our scouts call the Void Reapers, do not fight logically. They make decisions that seem random, but somehow work." Vextar slammed one of his fists on the table. "Random decisions cannot defeat superior firepower and tactics." "That is what we thought, sir." But we keep losing battles we should win. Yesterday, a small group of enemy ships attacked our strongest fortress while ignoring 3 easier targets nearby. It made no strategic sense, but they succeeded because we had moved our best defenders to protect the easier targets. In another part of the galaxy, the Andromedan Council was meeting in emergency session. The floating beings pulsed with worried colors as they discussed their own crisis. The war between the Centaurians and the Sirius Coalition has spread to 14 systems, announced Council Leader Zephyra, her translucent body glowing deep red with alarm. Both sides are demanding that we choose a side. What started this conflict? Asked Elder Nixel, his ancient form barely glowing with pale light. A dispute over mining rights in the Vega system. Normally such matters would have been mediated by human diplomats. They had a talent for finding solutions that satisfied everyone. Can we not mediate ourselves? Zephyra's colors shifted to frustrated orange. We have tried. But our logical approach to problem-solving does not work with emotional species. The Centaurians accuse us of favoring the Coalition. The Coalition claims we are biased toward the Centaurians. Both sides have rejected our proposals. Elder Nixel dimmed thoughtfully. The humans always said that successful diplomacy required understanding feelings as well as facts. We dismissed this as primitive thinking. Perhaps we were wrong, Zephyra admitted. Without human mediation, old alliances are breaking apart throughout the galaxy. On the trading world of Nexus Station, merchant vessels from dozens of species crowded the docking bays, but very little actual trading was happening. The complex economic networks that had connected hundreds of worlds were breaking down without the human companies that had managed the connections. Captain Rexander, a Corvin merchant, sat in a cantina with several other traders, all complaining about their problems. I have a cargo hold full of rare crystals from the Outer Rim, Rexander said miserably. But I cannot find buyers. The human trading companies that used to handle exotic materials are all gone. At least you have cargo, replied Captain Moltar, a Zilithian trader. My usual suppliers have stopped producing goods for export. Their factories are breaking down without human technical support. A third merchant, the Andromedan Captain Luxara, pulsed with dim blue light. The shipping routes are becoming dangerous too. Pirates are attacking convoys that used to be protected by human security forces. Why do we not hire other species for security? Asked Rexander. We tried, Moltar replied. But the other species use rigid patrol patterns that the pirates have learned to avoid. The humans used to change their routes and timing in ways that kept the pirates guessing. Back on Corvin Prime, Trade Leader Kinthara was reading the most important document her government had ever received. It was a sealed message that had been left behind by Senator Amy Watson, the former human economic advisor. The message was, programmed to open automatically 2 years after the human withdrawal. Honored colleagues, the recorded message began, showing Amy's image on the main screen. If you are watching this, it means the economic crisis I predicted has begun to unfold. Kinthara leaned forward, desperate to hear what the human had to say. By now, you have probably noticed that trade networks are failing, that manufacturing systems are breaking down, and that diplomatic relationships are deteriorating into conflicts. You may think these are separate problems, but they are all connected. The image of Amy Watson looked directly at the camera with sad eyes. Human economic models were not just different from yours. They were designed to handle complexity and uncertainty in ways that your logical systems cannot match. We saw patterns that your computers missed. We made connections that your analysis programs could not calculate. Kinthara felt her mandibles clicking nervously as Amy continued. Your species are excellent at optimizing systems that are already stable. But the galaxy is not stable. It is constantly changing, constantly adapting, constantly creating new challenges that require new solutions. Human economic approaches were messy and sometimes seemed inefficient, but they were flexible enough to handle unexpected changes. The recording showed charts and graphs that demonstrated how human trading companies had prevented dozens of economic crises over the past century, usually without anyone else realizing the danger had existed. We did not leave because we were angry, Amy's image said gently. We left because we realized that trying to fit human thinking into alien systems was holding back both us and you. We hope that someday, when you have learned to value different approaches to problem solving, we can work together as true partners." The message ended, leaving Chinthara staring at a blank screen. Everything Amy had predicted was happening exactly as she had described. Meanwhile, on the research station Nexus Prime, Dr. Zixander was making a disturbing discovery. He had been analyzing all the major scientific breakthroughs of the past 50 years, trying to understand how much human involvement had contributed to galactic progress. "Dr. Mintar, you need to see this," he called across the laboratory. The Corvin scientist hurried over to examine Zixander's data. "I have been reviewing the development of faster-than-light communication, improved medical treatments, advanced material science, and energy production improvements," Zixander explained. "In every case, the crucial breakthrough came from human insights." "What kind of insights?" "The type that our logical minds dismiss as unscientific. Humans would look at a problem and suddenly propose solutions that seem to come from nowhere. When we asked them to explain their reasoning, they would talk about hunches, feelings, or patterns they sensed but could not describe." Dr. Mintar studied the data carefully. "And these unscientific approaches produced real results? Every time. The humans would make intuitive leaps that bypassed years of systematic research. They would see connections between apparently unrelated phenomena. They would propose experiments that our computers calculated had low probability of success, but which often led to major discoveries. So human irrationality was actually a more advanced form of reasoning?" Zixander's blue skin flushed with embarrassment. "It appears so. We thought we were the advanced civilizations teaching primitive humans how to think properly. In reality, they were solving problems that we could not even understand existed. Deep in space, long-range sensors detected massive construction projects. In the Sol system where Earth was located, the energy signatures were unlike anything in known technology. Whatever the humans were building, it was far beyond what any council species could create. The proud alien civilizations that had once looked down on humanity were learning a harsh lesson. They had not just lost Earth's participation in galactic affairs. They had lost access to ways of thinking that had kept their entire civilization from falling apart. Now they faced a choice: adapt and learn, or continue declining until there was nothing left to save. 5 years had passed since humanity vanished from council space and the galaxy was dying. The Great Galactic Council Chamber, once filled with hundreds of delegates from dozens of worlds, now held only 23 representatives from the surviving civilizations. Empty seats reminded everyone of the species that had been destroyed by war, economic collapse, or the relentless advance of the Void Reapers. Prime Minister Vexitar, his once proud blue skin now marked with scars from recent battles, stood before the remaining delegates. His forearms trembled slightly as he spoke. "Friends, we face extinction. The Void Reapers have taken 17 star systems. Our economies have collapsed. Our people are starving. We have one choice left." Trade leader Chinthara, her compound, eyes dim with exhaustion, clicked her mandibles weakly. "What choice is that, Prime Minister?" "We must go to human space and take what we need: their technology, their knowledge, their methods of fighting and surviving. If they will not share willingly, we must force them to help us." The remaining delegates murmured among themselves. Dr. Nixandra, representing the few surviving Andromedan colonies, pulsed with desperate orange light. "But we have tried to contact them for years. They ignore all our messages." "Then we stop asking and start taking," Vextar replied firmly. "I propose a joint expedition to the Sol system. We will bring our best scientists, our finest warriors, our most skilled negotiators. We will make the humans understand that their survival depends on helping us." Admiral Kethmore, his uniform now bearing the marks of too many lost battles, nodded grimly. "My ships are ready, Prime Minister. We have nothing left to lose." 3 weeks later, a fleet of alien vessels approached the edge of human space. The expedition included the best scientists, diplomats, and military officers that the surviving council species could provide. Admiral Kethmore commanded the military escort, while Dr. Nixandra led the scientific team. Their mission was simple: Get human help by any means necessary. Admiral, we are detecting massive energy signatures ahead, reported the sensor operator on the flagship bridge. Kethmore looked at the tactical display and felt his blood turn cold. The readings showed structures that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. Cities that seemed to exist in folded space. Ships that appeared to be traveling through dimensions rather than normal space-time. Energy patterns that made no sense according to known physics. Are we detecting this correctly? He asked. Yes, sir. And sir, we are being scanned by technologies I cannot identify. They know we are here. Before Kethmore could respond, space around his fleet suddenly filled with human vessels. But these were not the simple ships the aliens remembered from 5 years ago. These craft seemed to shift and bend as if they were not entirely solid. They moved without any visible propulsion and appeared instantly rather than approaching from a distance. Unknown vessels, you have entered human space without permission, came a voice over the communication channel. The translation was perfect, but the technology carrying it was unlike anything in the alien database. State your purpose or return to Council space immediately. Admiral Kethmore swallowed his pride and activated the communication system. This is Admiral Kethmore of the Galactic Council Defense Force. We request permission to meet with human leadership. Our civilizations are dying. We need help. There was a long pause before the voice responded. You will follow our escort vessels to a meeting station. Any attempt to scan our technology or deviate from the assigned course will result in your immediate removal from human space. The alien fleet found themselves surrounded by human escort ships that seemed to dance through space without regard for the normal laws of physics. Dr. Nixandra watched the displays with growing amazement and fear. Nixandra, are you recording this? Asked her assistant, Dr. Colvin. I am trying, but our instruments cannot properly measure what we are seeing, she replied, her body pulsing with confused colors. These human ships appear to be using technologies that should not be possible. They were brought to a space station that existed in what appeared to be folded space-time. The structure was simultaneously enormous and compact, extending into dimensions that the alien sensors could not properly detect. When their ships docked, they found themselves in chambers that seemed much larger inside than outside. Commander Steve Hughes met them in a reception area that overlooked impossible views of multiple star systems. He was a tall man with graying hair and calm eyes, wearing a simple uniform that bore no resemblance to the military dress the aliens remembered. Welcome to Nexus Station, he said politely. I am Commander Hughes, Director of External Affairs for the Human Federation. I understand you have come seeking assistance. Admiral Kethmore stepped forward, his pride warring with desperation. Commander, our civilizations are collapsing. The Void Reapers are destroying everything in their path. Our economies have failed. Our people are dying. We need your help. Commander Hughes gestured for them to sit at a conference table that seemed to be carved from a single crystal that sparkled with inner light. Tell me, Admiral, what makes you think humanity can help with problems that your advanced civilizations cannot solve? Dr. Nixandra pulsed with embarrassed purple light. We have learned that human approaches to problem-solving were more sophisticated than we realized. Your people saw patterns and connections that our logical minds missed. Ah, Hughes nodded. So you have discovered that emotion and intuition can be tools rather than weaknesses. What took you so long? Trade leader. Chinthera clicked her mandibles nervously. We thought our way was better. We believed logic and calculation were superior to human feelings and hunches. Hughes stood and walked to a window that showed a view of Earth. But it was not the Earth the aliens remembered. This planet was surrounded by orbital structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Cities of light floated in space around it. Ships came and went through what appeared to be tiers in space itself. Would you like to see what humanity has accomplished in 5 years of focused development? Hughes asked. He led them through corridors that defied geometry, past laboratories where human scientists worked with technologies that bent the fundamental forces of nature. They saw manufacturing centers that created matter from pure energy. They watched human children learning to manipulate space-time as easily as the aliens manipulated simple tools. How is this possible? whispered Dr. Nixandra. 5 years ago, humans were the least technologically advanced species in the council. Hughes smiled sadly. 5 years ago, humans were trying to fit our thinking into systems designed by and for very different minds. We were like artists trying to paint with tools designed for mathematics, or musicians trying to compose symphonies using only logic circuits. They entered a vast chamber where human engineers were building something that hurt to look at directly. The structure seemed to exist in too many dimensions for alien minds to process properly. "What is that?" asked Admiral Kethmore. "A gateway to another galaxy," Hughes replied casually. "We have learned that the universe is much larger and more complex than any of our species realized. The Void Reapers are not the greatest threat we face. They are merely the first of many challenges that will require new ways of thinking to overcome." Dr. Colvin stared at the impossible construction. "You could solve all our problems with technology like this. You could drive away the void. Reapers restore our economies, bring peace to the galaxy." Hughes turned to face the alien delegation. "Yes, we could. The question is, should we?" The aliens looked at each other in confusion. "What do you mean?" asked Chinthara. "For centuries, your species treated humanity as junior partners at best, primitive savages at worst. You dismissed our contributions and ignored our perspectives. Now that you need our help, you come not with respect or friendship, but with demands and expectations." Admiral Kethmore felt shame burn in his chest. "Commander, we were wrong, we admit that. We are asking for your mercy, not demanding anything." Hughes studied the alien faces for a long moment. "Humanity holds no grudges, Admiral. We left not in anger, but because we realized our potential was being limited by trying to conform to your expectations. But help must be earned through understanding, not granted because of desperation." He walked back to the conference table. "We will help defend your people against the Void Reapers. We will provide humanitarian aid to prevent suffering. But the old council system is dead. If you want a future in this galaxy, you must learn to value the different gifts each species brings to common challenges." The alien delegates felt hope, for the first time in years, mixed with the humbling realization that humanity had grown far beyond anything they had imagined possible. 7 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council, and the once mighty organization was meeting for the last time. Only 12 delegates remained in the vast chamber that had once hosted hundreds. The empty seats served as silent monuments to fallen civilizations. Prime Minister Vextar, now missing one arm from a recent Void Reaper attack, stood slowly at the central podium. His blue skin was pale and marked with scars, his once proud bearing reduced to weary defeat. "Fellow delegates," he began, his voice echoing in the mostly empty hall. "We have lost. The Void Reapers control over half of what was once Council, space. Our economies have collapsed completely. Our military forces can no longer protect our remaining worlds." Trade leader Chinthara, her compound eyes dim with exhaustion, clicked her mandibles weakly. "How many worlds do we have left?" 43, replied Admiral Kethmore, consulting his datapad. "Down from 312 when the humans departed. Most of our colonies have been abandoned. Millions of our people are refugees with nowhere to go." Dr. Nixandra, her Andromedan body barely glowing with faint light, spoke from her floating position near the ceiling. "The research stations have all been shut down. Without human insights, our scientific progress has stopped. Completely. We cannot even maintain the technology we already have." Vextar looked around at the pathetic remains of what had once been the galaxy's greatest alliance. "Then we are agreed. The Galactic Council is officially dissolved. Each species must fend for itself." The few remaining delegates nodded silently. There was nothing left to govern, no resources left to share, no hope left to maintain. The proud civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were reduced to scattered survivors, trying to avoid extinction. Admiral Kethmore stood up slowly. "There is one option remaining. We could go to the humans as supplicants, not as equals seeking partnership, but as defeated peoples asking for mercy." "Would they even listen to us?" asked Chinthara. "Commander Hughes said they would provide humanitarian aid," Kethmore replied. Perhaps that includes helping refugees find new homes. 3 weeks later, a small fleet of battered alien ships approached the edge of human space. These were not warships or exploration vessels, but simple transport craft carrying the last survivors of once great civilizations. Admiral Kethmore commanded the largest ship, but his crew consisted mainly of civilians who had lost everything. "Human vessels, this is Admiral Kethmore," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We are not here as representatives of the former Galactic Council. We come as refugees seeking sanctuary. Our civilizations have fallen. Our worlds have been destroyed. We ask for mercy." The response came quickly, but not from the voice they expected. "Admiral Kethmore, this is President Rachel Stone of the Human Federation. We have been expecting you." Kethmore was surprised to hear from such a high-ranking human official. "Madam President, we did not expect to speak with you directly. These are extraordinary circumstances, Admiral. Please follow our escort vessels to Earth. We have much to discuss." The human ships that met them were even more advanced than what they had seen 2 years earlier. The escort vessels seemed to exist partially outside normal space, flickering in and out of reality as they moved. The alien refugees stared in wonder and fear at technology that made their own ships look like primitive toys. They were brought to Earth itself, but the planet they approached bore little resemblance to the EO world the aliens remembered. Orbital rings surrounded the planet like glowing necklaces. Cities of light floated in the atmosphere. The moon had been transformed into a garden world with its own breathable atmosphere. President Stone met them in a reception center that overlooked the Pacific Ocean. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair, wearing simple clothes that somehow conveyed more authority than the elaborate robes worn by alien leaders. "Welcome to Earth," she said warmly. "I am sorry for the suffering your people have endured." Vextar, the former prime minister who now led a group of Zilithian refugees, bowed deeply with his remaining 3 arms. "Madam President, we do not deserve your kindness. We treated humanity poorly when we had power. Now we come to you with nothing to offer." President Stone gestured for them to sit in comfortable chairs that adjusted automatically to accommodate different alien anatomies. "Let me be clear about something, Prime Minister. Humanity does not believe in punishment for past mistakes. We believe in learning from them and building something better." Dr. Nixandra pulsed with confused colors. "But we rejected your people. We dismissed your contributions. We drove you away from galactic civilization." "Yes, you did," Stone agreed calmly. "And in doing so, you freed us to become what we were meant to be. In a strange way, your dismissal was a gift that allowed us to reach our true potential." She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas controlled by the Void Reapers. Gray zones showed dead worlds where civilizations had collapsed. But there were also green zones near human space where new colonies were thriving. "We have been busy while you struggled with your crisis," Stone explained. "Human ships have been evacuating refugees from Void Reaper attacks. Human scientists have been studying the enemy to understand their weaknesses. Human diplomats have been helping survivor groups establish new settlements." Admiral Kethmore stared at the display. "You have been helping our people, even while we refuse to acknowledge your efforts?" "Of course. Human values include protecting those who cannot protect themselves, regardless of their past actions toward us." Trade leader Chinthara clicked her mandibles in amazement. "How many refugees have you saved?" "Over 40 million beings from 37 different species," Stone replied. "They are living in new colonies designed to accommodate their specific needs. Many are working alongside human scientists and engineers to develop better defensive technologies." The alien delegates looked at each other in shock. While their governments had been collapsing, humanity had been quietly saving their people. "But why?" asked Vextar. "Why help those who treated you so badly?" President Stone walked to a window that showed children playing in a garden below. Among the human children were young aliens of many different species, all laughing and learning together. "Because that is what good neighbors do," she said simply. "Because diversity makes us all stronger. Because the galaxy is a better place when different species work together as equals." She turned back to face the alien delegates. The old council system failed because it was based on hierarchy and the assumption that one way of thinking was superior to all others. The new galaxy we are building is based on partnership and the understanding that each species has unique gifts to contribute. Former Admiral Jake Morrison entered the room, now wearing the uniform of humanity's first contact service. He had aged since his dramatic departure from the council chamber 7 years earlier, but his eyes still held the same quiet confidence. "Jake Morrison," said Kethmore, recognizing the man who had announced humanity's withdrawal. "I remember you." Jake smiled. "And I remember you, Admiral. You asked good questions during those last council sessions even when others were not listening." "Will you forgive us for our arrogance?" Kethmore asked. "There is nothing to forgive," Jake replied. "You acted according to your nature and understanding at the time. Now you have learned from experience, just as we did. That is how wisdom grows." President Stone activated another display showing plans for new joint settlements. "We are offering permanent homes to all refugee populations, not as charity, but as the foundation for a new kind of galactic community. One where Zilithian strength, Corvan efficiency, Andromedan logic, and human creativity work together as equal partners." Dr. Nixandra's body glowed with tentative hope. "You would trust us after everything that happened?" "Trust must be earned through actions, not words," Stone replied. "But everyone deserves a chance to prove they have learned from their mistakes." The former council delegates spent the next several hours learning about humanity's vision for the future. It was not about human dominance or revenge against those who had wronged them. It was about building something entirely new based on mutual respect and the understanding that differences were strengths rather than weaknesses. As they prepared to return to their refugee fleets with offers of new homes and new hope, Vextar asked one final question. "What lesson should we take from all of this?" President Stone considered the question carefully before answering. "That pride and assumptions about superiority can blind us to the value of others. That dismissing different approaches to problems limits everyone's potential. That true strength comes not from dominating others, but from lifting them up as partners." The galaxy was indeed smaller than it had once been, scarred by years of conflict and collapse, but it was growing stronger through genuine cooperation rather than the arrogant hierarchy that had defined the old council era. The price of pride had been almost too high to pay, but sometimes the hardest lessons lead to the most important wisdom.